This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about a book today that has so much insight to move your life forward on many different levels. Now, yes, it's a book written by a gentleman who has, in the past, back in the day, struggled with addiction, changed his life, and now he helps others with one of California's top-rated intensive outpatient addiction treatment programs. So great to have him back here. I love the fact that he's very transparent about his story and now has committed it to a book, which, by the way, is now available as an audiobook and up for awards as well. Dr. Keith L. Marshall is back with us on the program. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great today. I appreciate you.
This book, we've referred to it a few times, never really got deeper into it. And with it being available in audio now, and you can find it on Amazon as well, thinking it's very relevant to jump in. It's a true story of perseverance from fear to giving you freedom. The title of the book is just, I'm going to say this, I don't think I've ever heard a title better for a book in describing the journey and what the book's about, from dumpster to doctor. Now, you've referred why you came up with that title. I want to go over that again. We always have new people checking us out. Literally, you were living behind and or in a dumpster at one point in your life, right?
Well, yes, we're not living in it. I often hid behind dumpsters. You know, when I got caught in the world of drugs addiction, meaning when I say got caught, I need you to understand that most people don't experiment with drugs to become addicted. So let's understand that truthfully, even before I became addicted, I had low self-worth, low self-esteem. I suffered from childhood abuse, and when I say suffered, meaning it created a mindset in me. So when I experimented with drugs, never knowing I would get caught up in it. Long story short, the dumpster is symbolic of the pain that I had to deal with and endure. But those pain led me to consequences that helped me to want to change. So I would hide behind dumpsters often because the crack addiction or the cocaine addiction had so much power that I would find myself selling the shoes on my feet in order to get a hit of crack cocaine. It was so debilitating and so strong that I compromised all my integrity, my morals, and my values. So hiding behind dumpsters was, I think, the lowest point. I lived in abandoned buildings. I slept in abandoned buildings. I lived on the streets and stuff like that. But the dumpsters, I never really fell asleep behind. I was too scared to fall asleep. But I hid behind them often in the daytime because I didn't want people to see me without, I would have on a t-shirt, jeans, and no shoes on my feet. I would be dirty and just half the time I was ashamed. So there was a lot of shame that went along with it. So hiding behind the dumpster on some days was the very best thing I could do until the darkness came in, so that I could, navigate my way through life and find a way to get some shoes or go to a hospital and tell them I want to commit suicide so they can give me some place to stay for the night and then get me into treatment or something like that. So it was desperation, bewilderment. It represents hopelessness, but it was also power in that I didn't understand until later. When I say power, that your pain has the ability to push you. And it pushed me. It pushed me into a power. It pushed me into my purpose in life. And so that's what the dumpster resembles. So that's why it's cinematic.
Sure,
the cover was very intentional. That you see me sitting in a suit in an alleyway with a dumpster, but because there's a transformation piece that's the most important piece here. I didn't want the book to just focus on the pain. Of course, I focused on the pain. That's my story. I was sexually abused as a child, physically abused as a child. There were things that it created in my mind, meaning that I didn't think worthy. Didn't think I was worthy. I lived in a lot of low self-worth, approval seeking, and people pleasing. These are things that were a manifestation of a poor socioeconomic environment and dealing with those abuses. The beautiful thing is not that. I mean, of course, that led me into addiction and then in that drug world. or the subculture of the drug world is very, very unforgiving. So when I got shot in the head and I was stabbed multiple times and been in treatment in and out and been incarcerated multiple times, it was a consequence of being in that world, never wanting to be in that world. You know what I mean? I grew up in a pretty cool home and I was an athlete. It wasn't until I broke my leg and I couldn't play football anymore that I kind of started messing around with the wrong people, if you will, or just people who were making wrong decisions. And I got caught up in not acting in good principles and making wrong decisions, but experiment. I was just trying to have fun, trying to see girls.
Yep.
I was in college my
Well,
first year.
the athlete in school, you've elevated to that point.
Right.
Dr. Marshall, was it a feeling when you broke your leg and you couldn't continue with sports? Was it a feeling that you kind of lost at that moment your identity, and that's kind of where the car turned a little bit?
You know, actually, even in school, the role identity, role confusion, that's a psychic ideal that, and if I have the stronger the trust I have in self, the more it's easy to make decisions to be who I really am as opposed to putting on a fake phony and a fraud. Sports distracted me from the inferiority that I was dealing with. Sports distracted me from trying to fit in because I was a popular athlete. But when I broke my leg in my senior year and got on my first year of college, everybody that knew me in high school, I wasn't popular. I didn't get the scholarship. Back then in 80, I didn't get a scholarship with the broken leg. I mean, and so what it did is, I think what happened was, without me even knowing it, that insecurity that I had been dealing with all my life started to emerge. And it started to manifest in many behaviors like childish approval seeking, people pleasing, putting on a fraud, trying to act like I was somebody that I wasn't. See, I didn't have to do that in high school. I was an athlete and I was good, and it spoke for itself. So I didn't feel that. But in college, I didn't get a scholarship. I wasn't known. And so, of course, I still felt that I wanted to socially connect. So I started going to parties and hanging out. And I was depressed because I couldn't play football. I had dreams of really going to the NFL, and it was more psychological because I broke 3 bones in my leg, and it
Mm.
physically I was able to run again, but psychologically I couldn't deal with because it was very traumatic for me when it happened. So I started experimenting on campus. I just smoking marijuana and drinking, and then when I started snorting cocaine, just trying to have party,
Yep.
meet girls, have fun, go back to class. Unfortunately, I didn't know that addiction was in that path, that I was going to get hooked on what it is that I was messing around with. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They don't
Mm.
they don't grow up and say, hey, they want to become addicted to drugs. People try it all the time. Everybody isn't going to become addicted. Some people are genetically predisposed for it. Science has been able to show there's usually some genetic characteristics in it. I don't know. I mean, but the reality of it, I got into something that I couldn't get out in that beginning.
Do you
And it led me
remember, do you remember the moment that you realized, oh, we have a problem here? And then do you remember the moment that you thought to yourself, I need to get help for this problem? Were they close to each other? Were they spaced out?
I got to be honest with you, man. When I look back, about 6 months in, I intuitively knew that I especially with cocaine, drinking and marijuana, no, but cocaine, I had this gut feeling that it was a little bit more spiritual too, that what was happening to me, that if there wasn't a God, or there was a God, and I am not a religious dude or any of that, somehow or something was going to have to stop me from wanting to desire this. The desire all by itself became compelling.
Mm.
It took me to 23 years of pain before when I say surrendered, I challenged the whole God concept then. The night that I changed, I said, look, dude, if you real, you God, whoever you are, if you don't free me, then kill me, because I knew I was too afraid to kill myself. And I think it wasn't just the impact of me finding spirituality, I think it was the impact of surrender. I finally got to a point where if there was a creator, you either kill me because you know I'm too scared to kill myself, or free me if you're supposed to be that powerful. I had come to that black and white decision.
Mm.
But it took me but yeah, 6 months in, I knew there was something going on inside of me. And no matter how much I tried to avoid it, and I remember in the beginning, I could control a lot of it. I could hide it, if you will. So for a few years, quite a few years, I was able to hide it very well, clean up, come off the binge and get it back. But after about 2.5 to 3 years, it would show up much quicker each time because the tolerance and withdrawal, the tolerance particularly increased. And I could tolerate, I needed more to feel something, which means I had to go through more resources to get something. Oh my God, it was
Did you
very.
even with all of that going on, 2 decades being hooked on substances, homelessness, near death experience, incarceration, all of that. Was there a piece of you, Dr. Marshall, along the way where you felt that there's more in me? I don't know if that point you ever thought that I could be a doctor and help people, but did you have that inside that maybe that fire, low burn, real because of where you were at, that you were thinking to yourself, I've got so much more in me, but I'm caught in the throes of this thing.
My entire life,
Wow.
the entire life of the addiction. I knew that I could do better. I knew that I could be better. I wanted better. I desired. When I couldn't get out, I really wanted to get out. But then there, of course, the selfish nature that it increases in us. It really had a very compelling. It was compelling. It was powerful. But no, the whole time. That's why I had went in and out of some. There are people I know who were able to go in treatment once or twice and turn the corner. I don't know their level or the impact it had on their life. I had been in over 25 drug programs. People would say, "Man, that was a failure."
Wow.
I don't see that as a failure. Everything I learned in each of those centers, I was also there because I really wanted a way out. But when I finally got delivered from it and broke away from it, all that information didn't go anywhere. I intuitively knew then that when I stopped doing it, there was more work to be done. So the ideal of becoming a doctor never touched me until I got into my master's degree program. I
Hmm.
never even thought about getting a doctorate degree. The first thing was just going to school and getting a certification as an alcohol and drug counselor because somebody told me after all these years, your personal trainer. I said, I wanted to do something else. He said, why not become a drug and alcohol counselor? It was funny to me. I said, well, I smoked enough dope. I could probably do that. It was a joke. But in reality, when I got in, I just decided to go to school and get my associate degree. But
Hmm.
I noticed something after the first semester. I realized that school had much more of an impact than just trying to get a degree in something. It built my esteem. It helped me to realize I was a part of the universe again. I felt better about myself. I put my book bag on as a 42-year-old man. I felt proud that I was going to school and I was teaching myself and I was educating myself with a purpose. So the purpose built my esteem, not cocky and arrogance and pretentious piece. It just helped me to feel better about myself, that I was doing something positive with my life. And each semester led to me also wanting to learn more about myself. That's why my
Hmm.
degrees in human development and psychology are powerful because they really never started with me wanting to be a doctor of clinical psychology. I'm not a psychologist, there's a difference. A doctor of clinical psychology had an emphasis on education, training, management, leadership. I don't want to be a psychologist, which is licensed, and sit behind a desk and talk to people one on one all day. That was not my idea. My idea was to impact a bigger cause, getting a doctorate in clinical psychology. However, I started learning a lot about myself. So examining myself, I could see myself through the theory. I could see myself through the work. And it gave me a stronger commitment to really uncovering things in me that I realized were driving my thinking, which were driving how I felt and subsequent behaviors follow. So transformation really was what it was. It was a progressive process. And then there was an experience in it. And I fell in love with the work. I didn't mind sitting all morning writing and writing papers. And I was always blown away by writing the papers that I would come up out. I would say, I would pray and ask God to help me. Like I said, not religious, man. I don't have any religiosity in me. I just believe that the God had helped me do this. I would pray, say, look, help me write this. And then my writing started to help me explore more work, more books, to learn about how I could self-actualize and become better at my being me, and not have to need approval from people, and seek identity through what others thought of me. So I started to transform that way and started to just fall in love with understanding how I learned how to think. And then most importantly, I learned how to forgive. I learned how to look at the trauma in my life and understand that broken people hurt me, but I was also broken to some degree and hurt others. And that's how life really is.
Let's talk about that really, really in depth. Like the F word, it's so powerful, but we don't realize it. And many of us can't or won't forgive those who did us wrong because we don't realize it's not it's for us. And we don't condone what somebody else would do.
Right.
You've had a lot of things that you went through,
Yes.
abuse as a child and more. How did you find the power and the strength to forgive?
Okay. For the first and foremost, I'd like anybody that might even listen to this understand that counseling and therapy, I would be my strongest suggestion, no matter what, when you're trying to deal with trauma, never go it alone. And also understand that my process and journey, it won't be yours, everybody. But I had others in my life help me to understand that what was traumatic for me was real. But I had to make decisions as an adult, because as an adult, how do I live peacefully with myself based on what others had done to me in the past? And there was only one solution in it. It's to find resolve in forgiveness. And what does that actually mean? So I had to learn the concept and practice of the principle of forgiveness, and realizing that forgiveness was really for me, not for them. Me being released from the power of what somebody did to impact how I thought about myself, me being delivered from kill the cancer of it all. I think unforgiveness is like cancer. It festers in our soul.
Hmm.
And then we find that we can't be okay because of egregious acts that may have happened. So I had counseling, I had working with others to help me process it, so that I could still recognize that the trauma was real. And I could recognize that maybe nobody would ever come to me and even say they were sorry about it. But at the end of the day, how do I learn to live with myself, understanding that the trauma did not have to define me, but it shaped me, and it taught me that other people are just as broken as other, but doesn't excuse their acts. When I was sexually abused, it doesn't excuse the abuser, but I excuse myself from the abuser for learning how to forgive them, understanding that I got to move on with my life, and I have no intent to want revenge. I don't. I mean, what happens to them is between them and the creator. And I have learned through mentorship and counseling that it was healthy to look at exploring how to move away from it, recognize that it's there, look at how it affected my thinking and my self-esteem, what it did to my life, and understand who did it and how it happened. But then now retrospect, and what did I learn from it, and how it could make me a better person. And so forgiveness it released me from. So it's a process. You
Hmm.
can't say I just forgive. It's a process. If you hold nothing in you, when you bring it up, you know it's gone. If you bring it up and it brings about some type of internal pain, then it's not gone. For some people, their traumatic experiences, people vow to never forgive someone for something. I'm not here to judge that. It's not my process. That's why I say, if you can at least be willing to work with somebody and look at that, maybe that willingness can lead you to the process of the forgiveness. That's why mental health therapy and counseling is essential
Did
to
you,
have to work with somebody.
Dr. Marshall, did you find you had to forgive yourself? And if so, was that a challenge?
Yeah, but also Claiming self-forgiveness is different than living it. And the only way anyone can forgive themselves is to be in a progressive process of making good decisions as much as possible that are good for them, not pretentiously, not arrogantly, and not selfishly, but things that help you to live and feel okay with yourself and remove shame. So self-forgiveness is about the actions I take to improve my life, to help me be a better version of myself, and can contribute to life and not take from life. So self-forgiveness is also a progressive process. I can say today I forgive myself, but if I go out and continue to do self-destructive things, then I don't even realize that I'm in denial and I'm actually lying to myself. Self-forgiveness is also aligned with progressive and positive growth in your life, however you define that. It's not about how much money you make. It's about how you learn how to accept life on life's term and to live within yourself, because forgiveness of self is also meaning I'm going to do the best things for myself as much as possible. Not perfect, but I'm going to move more away from self-destructive behavior to positive things that are going to give me positive outcomes. That's how you know you forgave yourself, because you're no longer walking in self-destructive thinking, which leads to self-destructive behavior.
Many say, many therapists say that we all have a feeling of not being worthy enough in us.
Yes.
It's there, and some more than others, some more in situations than others. So I appreciate how you brought that to our attention, that you can say, yeah, I forgive myself, but if you're not living it, you might be doing things in your life that don't fully support your transformation and growth, but not realizing it. And ultimately, in your subconscious, you haven't really fully forgiven yourself. Otherwise, things would radically change for many of us. This book
And
is
think,
amazing. It really is. Like every theme in here, it's yes, it's wonderful that it's about addiction, but it's not just about addiction. Finding
yeah.
hope, forgiveness, transformation, understanding, all here in this book. What's your website, Dr. Marshall? I know you have a link there. Probably the easiest way for somebody to start.
www dot the word dedicated treatment. So the all one word, dedicatedtreatment.com. There's a lot of things on the website that not only talk about getting people to help with addiction and mental health, but remember, I'm about the human developmental struggle. So we struggle with communication. We struggle with family dynamics and dysfunction. We struggle with low self-esteem, low self-worth. As human beings, there's a universal language of called human development. And then anywhere in my human developmental process, there could be brokenness based on the way I think about my life. If I can help people, then that's what my book hope to do. Not just addiction. If I can help people look and explore their own thinking and look for ways and understand the importance about change, is not looking what others have done or are doing, but look at how I'm viewing my life and how I've learned to think that way. And this is really what my book is about. The transformation process comes in the introspective process. We have to look at what happened. We can't ignore and deny it, but we don't have to allow what happened to define where we're going to go. We can retrospect and see what we've learned from it. And unfortunately, the part is, I say unfortunately because some people vow never to forgive, but unfortunately, a big piece of moving on is not only, as you say, forgiving others, it's also the major point is forgiving yourself. And this is what the book emphasizes. It emphasizes the transformation piece. We can bash forever, but what can we do to transform and grow from that? That's the essence of the book. I'm going to tell you the story. I got to tell you about the pain. But more importantly, I want you to understand that there's hope in your life. Like, grab on to your thinking and be courageous enough to see where your own thinking is now your responsibility.
If you didn't share that story of hiding behind dumpsters and everything else, the book won't have the same impact. You lived that life. You changed your life. That's inspiration for us to change ours. Thank you for everything you offer. Even today, talking about this in more depth. I'm so glad we focused on the book today. I get this, and you listed a whole bunch of things a few moments ago of things that people deal with. I'm going to say every single thing you said, right down to
Yes.
family strife, we all deal
Yes.
with. Anybody walk around saying that, well, my family's great, we never have any problem. You're lying. You're lying.
Remember the universal language, the human developmental process. It's universal. So what does that mean? That all these dynamics come to us in various degrees. Something persists, something's more chronic, something hurts, but we are all affected by each other, no matter where we are. And that's what the ideal is. But the key piece, I'm gonna leave you with this for today, is that no matter what's happening, as long as that I'm not psychotic, and because there's some people, and I pray for them, that just simply can't conceptualize and grasp truth. Maybe schizophrenia, and there's some disorders that are very real, and we have to have compassion for these people. But if I'm not diagnosed psychotic, no matter how hard it is, denial is also powerful. I have to be the one that be courageous enough to examine my own thoughts, good or bad or indifferent. I got to be powerful and courageous enough to examine my own thinking in order to break away from things that may be happening in my life that I have no control over. But I can control thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. I just have to be courageous enough to do it.
Thank you for sharing all of that and walking the journey with so many people and so many more. Thanks to this book, From Dumpster to Doctor. Appreciate you being here today.
All right, we'll talk to you.
You got it.
Bye.
We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.